Hello, hello. I am PeaceLoveMusic, and this is the DeOrganized Every Other Thursday podcast. We don't actually have a name for this show. We have to actually come up with a name for the show.
That's a good point.
Hattie could not be with us today. He's been sick. He is feeling better, but he's still not quite able to get into these things yet, which is no big deal. And to be honest with you, I meant to actually ask Jack to come on, and I'm sure he would have if he could have, but I noticed that he was actually in a space a little while ago, so I wasn't going to ask him to jump out of that and give something else to do. So we have a great guest today. You guys are seeing for the first time on this side of the camera on our show, Nick from BitcoinLive. Nick is the one behind the screen running the shows for us. He does a tremendous job, and we're in partnership with BitcoinLive for all of our shows that we broadcast live. They've given us a tremendous opportunity to work with them, and so excited. And I want to just spotlight Nick for all he does. He's done it. He's built a tremendous platform here. It really does kind of function there's a lot of effort into producing the show, but he's got it set up where it's really easy to do. It's a strong process to do. And he also features a ton of other great shows, all surrounding the Bitcoin ecosystem, covering a broad range of topics, and just gives a platform to a myriad of people in the space, providing different perspectives. Welcome, Nick. How are you today?
Well, thank you for that awesome intro. That's really nice of you, Steve. I'm good. I'm just got back from Bitcoin conference Amsterdam, which was a blast. I really had an amazing time there. I went with two friends. My brother Jan, who's actually also a founder of BitcoinLive. We did it together in 2018, end of 2018, I think. He went the first day to the Bitcoin conference Amsterdam, and he had actually all the top level speakers, Jack Muller from Strike, and there was this African speaker who was also brilliant. He was very enthusiastic about him, and of course the wife of Julian Assange. So sort of the top level speakers are always on the first day, but the second day was also really awesome.
Oh, nice. And so BitcoinLive was represented on both days. So that's awesome. That's great. And who did you see today that you thought who was your favorite speaker today that you saw?
Well, we really had. I'm really into geopolitics, and at the end of the day, you had some shows surrounding geopolitics. Actually, I wanted to go to Matthew Pine because I'm a big Matthew Pine fan. I follow him on Twitter, but my friends wanted to go to someone else, so I went with my friends. So we went to Buitink. He's like a Dutch gold analyst, but also a big Bitcoin advocate. And Van Middelkoop also. Buitink is his last name, but he's Dutch.
Oh, okay.
Buitink. Yeah, well, I actually sometimes DM a little bit with him. I don't know him, but I try to get him on the show, but that didn't work. But he's a nice guy and a smart guy, and so he sort of dived a little bit into comparison between gold and Bitcoin and why you should have both, which I actually agree with. And Van Middelkoop really did. He's sort of a pretty famous Dutch analyst who's sometimes also on American shows. He did basically the geopolitics, which I also mostly agree with. And there was a really nice speaker, but I forgot his name, who was sort of at the start of the day, I think around 1:00, who spoke about layer 2 solutions, and that was quite eye-opening, and sort of all the sort of difficulties and trade-offs that have to do with layer 2 solutions. From bridges to federations and everything that can go wrong, and why we should try every avenue that we have in order to make it work. And he says it won't ever be completely trustless in his opinion, but we have to make it as trustless as possible, and we have to explore as many avenues as possible, and basically get the broader crypto community also involved. So he was not a complete Bitcoin. So that was also interesting.
That is very interesting. And as you know, I'm definitely a Bitcoin supporter. I love
Me too.
Bitcoin and what it stands for and the ethos behind it, decentralization. Um, I'm a huge fan. I'm a member of the community for the Stacks ecosystem, the Stacks layer 2. Stacks is the largest layer 2 by market cap being built on a Bitcoin right now. And I don't know if you're familiar with the SBTC product that's coming.
Now you might have to fill me in on that one. So this stuff is happening all the time. So
Yeah, so you're aware of like the Nakamoto update
yeah.
coming, and they're gonna, the hard fork is probably a couple weeks away. It's been delayed a little bit. It was supposed to actually happen yesterday. But you better safe than sorry, right? You got to work out all the bugs before you open it up. Not a big deal. But SBTC is basically a 1-to-1. It's a wrap Bitcoin.
Oh yeah. Now that you mention it,
really. So the mechanism is the Bitcoin gets deposited into a multi-sig wallet that's controlled by core signers in the Stacks ecosystem, which signers are the ones that basically run the transactions between Stacks and Bitcoin, because all of the Stacks transactions finalize on Bitcoin, but they happen on Stacks first. SBTC, so when you deposit, it's like a bridge basically, or it's a wrap. You're wrapping Bitcoin, but it's a SIP10 token on Stacks. It's 1-to-1. It's very, very secure based on the way the signer mechanism works and the interest involved. There is some level of trust that the signer network will remain benevolent because of their incentive to maintain the network. But I mean, I don't think you can ever get past that, essentially. And
that was also his point, right? So his point was exactly what you just mentioned, that there will always be sort of a weak spot where some trust is involved, and that you can't really get around that sort of trade-off, but that there will always be sort of these kind of trade-offs, and that we have to sort of explore every avenue in order to make it as robust and resilient as possible in order to sort of work around the banks, right? So because that was his main point, like, we don't want these intermediaries to get back in the game, right? We want to eliminate them as much as possible.
As decentralized as we possibly can. And also, the really interesting thing about SBTC, or the most recent development, is there's agreements with Aptos and Solana for it to be bridgeable to their platforms as well, or connecting. Nice. So they're going to be utilizing SBTC in other chains as well. So it's going to get Bitcoin adoption and functionality out to a bunch of the ecosystem, like a bunch of the broader crypto ecosystem.
Yeah, and that's very exciting, because you do need the scalability, right? Scalability remains an issue.
Exactly.
And you got the trilemma, and there is no way around that trilemma, right? So you at some point you do need these second layers, right? And that was also a really exciting part at the end of the conference, where Katie from Lightning Network spoke.
Nice.
And she sort of explained that they now have this sort of incentive fee system where if you run your own Lightning node, that you get sort of paid by the Bitcoin network. So that sort of incentivizes people to run nodes, and also to get AI bots able to open wallets on Lightning Network so that they can get paid and pay each other, which will also sort of drive the network further. But of course, Lightning is also a layer 2.
Right, Lightning is also a layer 2. You're going to have layer 2s. You have to, or you don't have to. You can just keep your Bitcoin on Bitcoin. Yeah. But it's not going to do anything else beyond what it already does now, short of some meta protocol developments too, right? You're still going to have, runes and ordinals and BRC20 tokens and DMT development. So there's a lot of development happening on Bitcoin now. And that's very new. That's very new.
Super exciting. Yeah.
Super exciting.
And then, of course, right, in the end, we do want payments to happen with Bitcoin, or at least, using Bitcoin as a sort of base, and that we don't. So because that's sort of the point that Jeff Booth made in a recent interview with George Gammon, because they have this sort of back and forth between them. And I'm a big Jeff Booth fan. He inspired me a lot. The Price of Tomorrow, but also Ego Dev Capital, which I really like the name of that venture fund. But he sort of explained that, we do need to also turn Bitcoin not only in a store of value, but also in a medium of exchange. Because otherwise, and that's something that some other guests in this conference also touched upon. He was from the Dutch Libertarian Party. That you can sort of, if you build a CBDC on top of Bitcoin, which is basically another fiat, only worse, is that you can, the more you print of that CBDC or that fiat, the more the price of Bitcoin goes up, which incentivizes to print even more. And, so that you get this sort of infinite loop where Bitcoin goes up, but, that allows them to print more of their CBDCs and their fiat. Right? So that would be sort of reverse.
You're going to get that. You're going to get that.
Yeah, but so what is important is of course that there remain exits in the system, that you can sort of escape such a system.
Are you familiar? We had Jacob was on Jack's show. Want to say about a month ago, or maybe 6 weeks, maybe a month and a half ago. From Hermeticify.
Yeah,
I don't know if you were. Yeah, so.
With the 25% APY.
Well, nice. I think it's actually up a little bit higher now too.
Wow.
But it's a rune token for now. And actually they did since that show, they just launched it this past week. USDH is now live. It's a SIP10 token on Stacks, and it's $1. It's a native Bitcoin backed dollar stable token, which doesn't allow, the value of, there has to be equal value of Bitcoin backing it for it to exist. And it's hedged, he's got a short futures hedge against it, so the value of it will always stay with $1, but the interest will go up and down. So the interest has actually gone a little bit higher from what I've heard, but it's also some of the interest on it's paid in points, I believe. So it's not 1-to-1 interest rates and stuff like that. So it's not, the rate is less interesting to me than the dollar stable coin native on Stacks that's backed by Bitcoin. That is super novel.
Sort of the main point of all these people and all the things that sort of what they agree on is, whatever solution that we come up with, it has to be as decentralized as possible, right? So sort of that is sort of the main takeaway from either it's Lightning or it's Stacks or whatever it is. It has to be as decentralized and trustless as possible. And as long as we aim, as a community towards those goals, then eventually things will improve. And so I really enjoyed it, and that's also the mission of BitcoinLive itself, right? To decentralize as much as possible. And they were also talking about Nostr, of course, which is basically trying to decentralize social media and doing I think a pretty good job. And that's also one of our core values, because we have a cute name, right? We have this slogan like Decentralized Broadcasting, which I came up with, and it turned out that nobody used it yet. So I thought like that's nice. But there is sort of a philosophy behind decentralized broadcasting, right? I really see BitcoinLive more as a federation, sort of like-minded people which share sort of core values. It's okay that we have differences of opinion and different kind of focus and angles, but we have these sort of core values which sort of coalesce around the Bitcoin ethos. And all these different people, they make different kind of shows about different kind of topics with different kind of expertise. And we together, we form Bitcoin as a federation. And it's also decentralized in the sense that we spread this message and these values of decentralization. And it is also decentralized in the sense that we're on many different social media. That's also self-preservation, because we have been banned many, many times. So we have learned the lesson of to diversify, which is a form of decentralization. But we also try to push decentralized media itself, right? We're on TreeSpeak, and we're also gonna go on Noster and Woobits. Those are also sort of our goals. The only problem is manpower, energy, the stuff that you also can talk about, because I have major respect for what you do with DeOrganized Media. I know how hard it is to be in all those spaces and run all these things. And you do like how many shows a week? 8 shows or something? Like 7?
It really is. It's even more than that, probably, because of the other shows I'm supporting and the other projects I'm supporting. And I get in. So just my regular DeOrganized schedule right now is Monday through Friday. I do the morning show, which, started off with me just saying hi and giving some like positive messaging and a little bit of a shout out here and there about what was going on, to now I'm handling the Stacks calendar, and I'm really trying to cover all of the major news that's going on in the space to really fill that need, because it turns out that there was really demand for that. There's we're getting a lot of people watching and a lot of people paying attention and a lot of interest. So Monday through Friday, we have that. We have a space that we host every Wednesday that's specifically geared towards spotlighting projects building in the Stacks ecosystem. That was like the flagship piece of what launched DeOrganized, which was launched out of the D grants process through the Stacks Foundation. And so 5, 6, right? Then we do this show every other Thursday. So that's when I have that show at 7. I just added a space that I'm hosting later in the afternoons on Mondays called Whatever Mondays, DeOrganized Whatever Mondays. And that's actually kind of spurred on by our friends at Zero Authority DAO. They really, it's because I wanted to create a time where I'm regularly having a space that Zero's available, because he's West Coast US, and earlier that's a little bit hard for him. So I put on that it's brought to them by Zero Authority DAO. They're not really sponsoring it. They're just friends of mine, and I love their project, so I'm happy to shout them out. And I really think that what they're doing in the space is great. But that's 7. Then I also handle, I've been helping Jack with his show. The Stacks Link project that just launched. They have a regular space every Thursday morning. So we had that this morning. I actually had a prior engagement, so I was doing that remotely from another event I was in. We could go on and on. This past weekend we had some technical difficulties, and I filled in. Fortunately, I was available, and I filled in and produced a couple of shows for BitcoinLive. So we got Good Kitty show out, and we also hit the shows.
This Saturday is part 2. Actually, I have a call with Good Kitty afterwards.
Very nice. Very nice. Looking forward to seeing that. I thought it was a great show. Paul was a great guest. She's so organized, and she asked great questions. She's very well in touch with the subject matter for what she's covering there. So love that show. Shout out to Good Kitty and Paul.
Thank you for filling in, because my computer broke down, and I was so glad that I didn't have to cancel stuff and that you sort of could jump into that. So thank you for running that.
So it's because I believe in I believe in that's why I'm here, and that's why you've given me the opportunity to broadcast on your network. We share a similar perspective on things. We don't agree on everything, and that's no one's ever expected to, right? We're all stuck in our individual finite perspective. Like, I can't see things from your perspective. You can't see them from mine. We can try to understand each other, keep open minds, and respect the right to have a different opinion. That's actually something that's very lacking in today's media. You can't have an opposing opinion to whatever the media is saying. How backwards is that?
Yeah, but luckily we also share a lot of stuff in common, and we also should emphasize that, of course. And BitcoinLive is Bitcoin centric, of course, also. And I love what you're doing with the organized media. And this is it's kind of interesting also to sort of talk about the evolution of BitcoinLive itself, right? Because we started just me and my brother like 5 years ago now.
Almost 6 years, if you said
2000. Almost 6. Yeah. Time flies.
It goes quickly, sir.
And but we started like super amateurish, and we still have a lot of time to a lot of room to grow professionally. But we just started, two brothers doing a show, and we did like you doing now, like 8 shows a week, often like an hour on end, and we did that for a couple of months until we sort of broke down. Oh my god, we can't keep this up.
I absolutely understand and have much respect for what it takes to build what you have here. And I'm super appreciative for the opportunity to be able to kind of have the foundation already here for what I'm doing, so it was able to, I was able to kind of figure this out. It wasn't as hard to, that's why I'm able to do so many shows a week, because there's something here for me to use to do that.
Well, and then this is also, maybe a good pitch to do right now, for anybody watching and you think of starting a show and you don't know where to start, because, there's a lot of stuff involved, right? I mean, you have to orient yourself, but you also have to create a network and a community, and all that kind of stuff takes, now how much stuff that takes. And one of the nice things about BitcoinLive, but also about, the organized media, is that you can sort of piggyback or sort of lift off the network effect that we already established, and the expertise that we have, and the people that we know, and the communities that we build, and the reach that you have. But also sort of you can just plug in and start your own show, and we can help you set it up, and that takes a lot of hassle. It makes it easier to start a show if you're sort of doubting about it. You can even do a pilot show if you feel like it. Just reach out to me or to Steve, and we can talk it over. And
it doesn't even have to be like, you could just do a show to see what it's like to do a show. It doesn't have to be a commitment to a regular time or anything like that. You could even just come on and talk on one of our shows too.
Also possible.
That's always a good way to start. I didn't immediately start with a show. I actually started because Jack Ben Switch started his podcast up with you again. He had one previously with you guys. And he asked for people to come on, and I offered. I said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to do that. Get on and chat with whoever." And we met, and I consider you to be a good friend of mine now. You're an awesome dude. We do share a lot. We see eye to eye on a lot of things. I wasn't trying to. My point was to make a point, but we do see we meet eye to eye on a lot of perspectives and how we think people should be treated, and how we think maybe the things should go, right? But I got my start going on Jack's show, and I met you. We built a relationship. I happened to be doing something through the D grants process that lined up well and made sense. And it just, sometimes the universe puts you where you want to be, but don't be afraid to try. Right? If this is something you've been
reach out.
Reach out.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then we always love onboarding new people with new perspectives and new shows. I think it's sometimes different. We had some people who had shows who went on to do other things. But I think in total we ran about 15 different shows or something on our platform. But we started off with our own show until we sort of got banned by YouTube for unknown that's a crazy story in itself.
Well, YouTube. So I watched. I've been using YouTube for a long time as a viewer. It was actually a great place to go get different perspectives at one time when it was actually just random people putting stuff on there, and the algorithm was a little bit more organic, where you could find stuff relevant to what you were searching for that wasn't kind of siloed. Now it's all very siloed. Like, you still get stuff that's relevant to what you're looking for, but it's only the approved stuff that doesn't touch on other things that they don't want it to talk to you about.
Plus you have to regularly sort of break through your own bubble, right? Because you sort of spin this bubble, and then you regularly have to sort of change your own search habits in order to sort of find new stuff.
Right. Well, and I find most of my YouTube watching now is on my TV when I do walk away from my computer and sit at my couch. I'm just watching what they suggest to me, because there's always some stuff that's going to be interesting. So they've already got it controlled. If I want to find alternative stuff right now, most of the time I actually go to Twitter, or you can go to Rumble and stuff like that. But there are some other places. But I find Twitter to actually be the place where you can get more honest discussion.
I totally agree. Absolutely. We're still biggest by far on Twitter. What you see on YouTube is purely organic. Since our ban, we didn't spend any effort or money in order to make it grow. So what you see there is purely organic. And we've been, and we have also been banned on Twitter. To be honest, I like Twitter, but we've also been banned on Twitter and had to start over. So we started over from YouTube. We had over 10K subscribers before we got banned, which was a little bit more than a year ago.
I was also banned under. I had to create. So my PeaceLoveMusic account is actually new in January, because I hadn't really been on Twitter very much before that. It was so I was with the Node Rocks group, and I was trying to help those guys get the attention of Magic Eden and some of the other projects in the space, because we were trying to unrug the project. It had gotten rugged. Yeah. So the community was still in the process of doing that when I came along, and I started using Twitter more then. And I had grown my account. At the time, I'd only had like a couple hundred followers. I hardly ever used it. I had grown my account organically with I made connections with a bunch of people in the broader Bitcoin space, including a number of like influencers that had high account numbers. And I just was taking it a little bit too far, being a little bit too goofy with the promo of it. Like, I was more like acting, but I pushed the envelope a little bit too many times, and I know what I did. I don't think I should have not gotten my account back over it, but they didn't see eye to eye, and I got banned on X.
Yep.
I don't agree with that behavior. I don't think that a communications device should be able to completely stop you from communicating. But if you're engaging in behavior that they see as potentially being harmful to the community, even if it really isn't, I respect also that if you are a centralized platform, that's your responsibility to use that tool if you have it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I probably got banned because of, I was very outspoken during COVID, and and then there was this moment
there were different people in control of Twitter.
So that was, Jack Dorsey stepped down, and then I told my brother, oh shit, I'm gonna, behave from now on. And then like 2 weeks after Jack Dorsey stepped down, I got banned, I think retroactively, for what I've said, when he was still around. So when Elon Musk took over, I was actually very happy. But yeah, I never regained my almost 9K account. And Jan, my brother, he had a 23K account, and he it's kind of unclear what there. He didn't explain exactly to me what has happened there, but he lost his account earlier this year. I think it got hacked or something, if I understood. Anyway, he couldn't get it back, and then his smaller account also, that one got banned. And Twitter doesn't really give you a reason why you got banned. YouTube gives you a reason, right?
So my experience was I appealed it, and they actually responded to me and told me they were going to overturn it. And like it would be like within like 60 minutes. And like a couple hours later, I'm like, it's still banned. And I messaged them again. I emailed them back. So I had emailed and they were like, they gave me this, sorry, after review, you've continually broken whatever.
Community guidelines. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So
the YouTube was a crazy story. I'll tell it very briefly. I was in an interview with just a nice guy talking about the economy. It wasn't really exciting, it wasn't really cutting edge or dangerous stuff. But during the interview, we got a strike, as they call it, for what you're saying right now during this interview, while it was still live, is unacceptable, without sort of specifying what was said. But it was really strange because the interview was still ongoing. That was the first strike. So then my brother sort of appeared in the comment section, like, we got a strike. And then like 2 or 3 minutes later, we got a second strike, and that was like, you're making dangerous content, like just a blanket strike for that. And then a few minutes after that strike, we got banned because the third one was, you have repeatedly violated community guidelines, and your account is now terminated. Goodbye, or thank you, come again, right? So it's like, and the interview was still ongoing, so my brother was sort of in the comments, like, and I was, watching.
Wait, so the interview was ongoing. Did the account shut down?
No. Afterwards, sort of that interview never appeared, and afterwards, of course, I called my brother, and he said, like, I cannot sort of access YouTube anymore. And that was that, and that that created a love-hate relationship with YouTube, but also with centralized media, right? I mean, it's sort of like you need them because everybody's on it, but it's almost like the harrowing where Jesus has to descend into hell to save souls, right? You do need to use these central platforms in order to reach people, otherwise you're just reaching to the choir, of course. So
no, that's absolutely right. You need to be able to use those mediums to reach those audiences as you can, I like YouTube. I saw that whole thing break down. I started to change a long time ago now, probably even before you started before you were even started in 2018. I probably like a good 5 years before that, I saw it change from being really organic to being very hyper controlled and very also like a lot of inauthentic content, like a lot of shows that were aimed at looking like it was real stuff and real people, but it was scripted and staged. Like the guy with his kids and the gamer kids, and there's a bunch of that stuff that was like not really real. Like all the stuff that they were presenting was
and the guidelines are super vague, right? I mean, they did improve since then, but they don't strike you down as hard as they did back then. But they are super vague, and crypto is a very vague area because of the regulation and stuff. So you're sort of constantly sort of in difficult terrain. So they can strike you down at any moment if they sort of feel like it. But and then of course it is to protect people from disinformation or illegal activities or whatever. But at the same time, when I turn on my YouTube, there's commercials, and then you see a fake Elon Musk saying, scan this QR code.
I
And
see that on Facebook a lot, actually.
yeah, also, but so they can ban individual content creators who try to do an honest job, but they
But that's
can't block
actually it's so
advertisements.
so right now we're broadcasting through Restream. Part of the decentralized piece is the ability to go on to multiple social channels at one time. We're on your YouTube channel, the BitcoinLive YouTube channel, and the DeOrganized YouTube channel, and the PeaceLoveMusic X account, and the BitcoinLive X account, and the DeOrganized X account, and
Yeah,
my Facebook page, and
yeah.
your
So
Facebook page.
yeah,
So
and that's sort of something that I want to touch upon, because after that ban, it took me a long time to get back to YouTube again after that happened, and the same thing. Yeah, Twitter was a little bit easier, but then I said, okay, we do need a YouTube account, but it sort of woke me up that we had to do it totally different, right? And that's sort of when I came up, like, we're not going to call ourselves Bitcoin Live, but we're going to call ourselves Bitcoin Live DB, and we're going to try to sort of create content, get more people involved, and create more content, better content, more diverse content, but also to spread it as far and wide as possible, also to increase your reach, but also to make as many copies. It's basically the nodes, like running nodes. So in that sense, yeah, it's in a real sense, it's decentralized. So yeah, that's what we stand for and what we believe in. And I think decentralized media, like real decentralized media, they are about to explode, right? I mean, it always starts small and it seems to go nowhere, but the repression and the centralization is only going to increase exponentially,
well, they're
and that will
trying,
drive people. Yeah.
right? They're trying, and actually, very related and interesting, because you had brought up Noster, and I have only used it a little bit, and I know some people that love it and swear by it. There's a project being built on Stacks called Derupt, and it's a social-fi platform. It's a social media. It's decentralized because it's on the blockchain, and it's open source, and it can be written on top of, and you can develop your own client, and they don't have any control over the content at all
Nice.
on it. So they or the people building that have kind of taken they suggest that Noster is very censorable. Even though the nodes relay the message, the nodes operators and the client operators can actually censor whatever they want from their end, and there's no way to even monitor to see if they did it.
Yeah. So that's sort of coming back to the conference in Amsterdam. What the person was talking about with layer 2. You keep these sort of trust issues. You cannot fully decentralize. It's sort of more like an ambition or an ideal that you work towards. And I always say, decentralization, the measure of freedom is the measure of decentralization, or decentralization is the measure of freedom. Is a better way to put it. Sort of, the more decentralized you are, the more freedom you have, and you will never get absolute decentralization.
That's really the whole. They talk about political spectrums, but the real spectrum is between. It's a slider for, and I don't care whether you want to go left or right, because conservative, liberal, left, right, they really all just relative terms. They don't describe any actual ideas or ideals. But on one side, we'll say the right side, is the stronger government, less freedom. And on the other side is the weakest government and the most freedom. And there should be some kind of balance. That's really what we need to do, is seek out a balance. Right now, everything is very, very centralized and very, very controlled, to a point where it exists beyond the scope of most people to even realize it. And then they tell everybody, don't look at this. You're a conspiracy theorist. If you think anything beyond what we tell you is happening. And they discourage most people from looking at it. But
quite successfully.
Yes, very successfully, and they're getting more and more tools to be able to do it with as well. But that's the World Economic Forum met I think it was a couple weeks ago now, and Lagarde, the head of the EU, was there speaking, and the number one global threat, according to the World Economic Forum and the leaders of Europe,
It's
is
truth.
information is information that they deem as not valid for you to know. They call it misinformation and disinformation and malinformation, but it's really just unapproved information according to the central authority, and that is wrong. That is not. It's not acceptable
And it is
for
so weird, right? I studied philosophy. I'm actually a doctorate in philosophy, and I studied cultural anthropology. And in my upbringing as a kid in a Western society in Holland, it was, for me, it was unimaginable that that we would ever doubt about the amount of freedom, right? That there would ever be a time that people would start thinking like, oh, maybe we need less freedom. I thought it was such a foundational truth that the more freedom we have, the more robust and resilient our economy, but also our society would be. And that's also sort of where we started welcoming people in from that philosophy, that we want freedom for everybody and for people to be free movement. But at the foundation was just as much freedom as possible in every sense. And now we started sliding down that scale, like I think in the late 90s, but probably earlier, even much earlier probably. But that when it became very apparent that less freedom was the trend, and now it's becoming really suffocating, and people are actually fleeing Europe to other places, which is creating this sort of vicious cycle that societies go downhill from there.
the more, and they're bringing in people that don't know better, and
it's not the people, right? They're just doing what they do, right? It's
right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's very we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do,
Yeah, we really have to sort of create a positive feedback loop, right? We had a negative we're now in a very negative feedback loop, and we have to break it. And the only real tool to break that negative feedback loop is Bitcoin, right? That's the only thing that sort of can reverse this trend.
Well, it's the communities that can be built around the ethos of Bitcoin.
Ethos.
Open source. When the internet first launched, it was open source. People, they wanted everyone to build on it. It still kind of is, but not really, because the commercial internet is very closed and compartmentalized and siloed. So the average person can't build on it. And so open source, censorship resistance, the reason why we need these tools to be able to resist censorship, that's actually a huge factor. That's why when I wasn't aware of that problematic condition with Nostr. Maybe there are ways to build tools on Nostr to make that better, and the community can come together and do that. One thing that we're finding, so one of the reasons why I'm so optimistic about Stacks isn't just because and I want to say shout out to 300 saying hi in the comments, my man.
Yeah.
What's up? My homie, he was on the show yesterday morning. I don't know if you caught it because you were traveling. Great dude. What's up, 300? But one of the things I'm super excited about regarding the Stacks ecosystem is not just that it's a layer 2 on Bitcoin and it's adding a ton of functionality to Bitcoin. That's what made me look at it. But the community and it's happening a lot on X, is engaging in a lot of public discourse on an almost constant basis What's up, Hero Gamer says hello. He must have heard I was talking about stacks to come on here.
Nice.
And it's the community very much that Hero's building out. He's the main culprit, actually. What he's done is bring a ton of people together, all of these same ethos, and it's because we all share the ethos, same as you.
Yeah.
We decentralization and open source and censorship resistance and giving people options, and letting people decide, self custody, self-determination. That was what got us democracy, the idea of self-determination. We've kind of fallen off of that. So this is what there's a piece to culture, is what Hero's saying. The culture of Bitcoin is resembled and reflected in stacks, and the people building there very much the same as the people building on other platforms as well, building on Rootstock, building on Lightning Network, building on there's other ones too. I have a lot of optimism for the community and the culture that's shaping around these platforms.
Well, that was also my takeaway from the Bitcoin conference, right? It's attracting more and more people. I mean, it can be even more, right? But there were like 5,000 people there. And, you see people waking up. More and more people are waking up, getting involved, asking better questions, getting themselves better informed. You see it happening, right? And as things get worse, as things get worse, people get better, right? I mean, it also activates the good in people. And like you say, Stacks has an amazing community. And there's other amazing communities out there. And, BitcoinLive tries to sort of be a hub for people who basically share the same ethos, right? For decentralization, transparency, accountability, just working on open source, basically everything that has to do with Bitcoin. But we do sort of recognize that one of the things that sometimes what I find a little bit what I think that could improve, like in the entire ecosystem, and especially the maxis have are sort of the epitome of that. It's like there's no room for other people who are actually trying to fight the same fight, right? We basically all have the same enemy, and the enemy is called centralization. And central banks are, of course, the most egregious, but governments are second, and there's many others. Two big companies or monopolists or whatever you fill in the blank. But there's many different kind of communities out there who are basically also trying to build projects, who are basically trying to achieve the same thing. And we would love to be to bring all those communities to be together and to sort of cross-pollinate and work together on similar issues and similar solutions, and instead of fighting each other, right? Because I think there's a lot of tribalism in the space, which is mostly unnecessary, because we're all on the same side, working on the same things, and it's draining a lot of energy, and it's creating a lot of animosity. And while two dogs are fighting, the third dog, the centralization proponents, are sort of running away with everything, right? So I think
they're not only running away; they're pitting the dogs against each other while they're
actively. That's my opinion, right? And I think we are better than that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't love every blockchain that's out there, but I respect everyone that's building on them for the purpose of trying to build out open source, decentralized, censorship resistant projects and protocols. I mean,
absolutely. And I totally agree with you. There's also shitty coins and shitty blockchains and shitty or no communities, like blockchains without communities, right? That's a very bad sign if that's the case. But even if that's the case, right? You know, Bitcoin Live wouldn't be we wouldn't say like, oh, you're not allowed to come on. You know, we won't talk to you, right? We don't want to hear what you have to say, right? We don't want to be that platform that sort of censors others, right? We will stick to our core values and our core convictions, but we're not going to say like, you know, we're gonna not listen to whatever it is you have to say.
Right. Like all right. Like for instance, your friend from Derupt is Decred. Decred.
Decred.
Your friend Derupt is a different project. My friend Decred is your buddy from Decred is interested in coming on and chatting, so I'm going to have him on. I think Tuesday. We're going to come on and he's going to talk about his project, and it's not Stacks related at all, but it is Bitcoin focused, and there is some Bitcoin functionality there, and it's an interesting project, and it's a perspective that he can bring, and he's someone in the space, and I'm sure that's not all we'll talk about, right? There'll be plenty of other things we chat about. And we want to have these conversations, like Hero said, in public. Even if it's a bad actor in the space and we just don't, or someone that we're not sure of, and maybe they are a bad actor, and why are you platforming them? Well, because don't you think people should know the truth about things, right? And they shouldn't know just from me telling them. You know, I'm not.
You should hear it from the horse's mouth. No.
Yeah, exactly. Speech means being able to or having to endure opinions that you find offensive. And deal with them. You have to deal with them. The idea of censorship is to not deal with the reality of things. That's all censorship is about. It's hiding the truth. Anything else beyond that is.
Karl Popper had this famous quote, sort of like, freedom is security, right? The more freedom you have, the more secure your society becomes. Sort of freedom and security are not opposed to each other, and that you have to sacrifice freedom in order to get more security. No, freedom is security, right? So
that's absolutely true. Because if you're not free, you don't have a vested interest in your own security. So if you are free, you have a vested interest in your security. So it's on you to get involved in that process. That's another thing we're doing at Stacks right now. I don't mean to make this show about Stacks, but it's
no problem.
It's relevant to the conversation we're having, because there's a project called Charisma. It was a meme coin DAO, kind of a DeFi platform, and they were exploited. They lost hundreds of thousands of dollars of user funds. It's happened within the last couple of weeks. And the response from the community in Stacks was very tremendous, as far as getting together, identifying what happened with the situation from a bunch of different perspectives, and forming now this centralized, and it is kind of centralized, but not in a negative way, not in an authority way, but this kind of community group that's going to build out some kind of way to identify security issues and auditing issues, and make sure that the smart contracts are safe, and make sure that information is available to the public, and maybe create some kind of security score, and maybe even integrate that into the wallets, so that when community members are interacting with some of these sites with less secure scores, there's a notification on there. Hey, you might want to be careful of this. Hey, you might want to be careful of that. Not a censorship thing.
Yeah, but this is like exactly, what we just talked about. You need to have freedom in order to make mistakes, in order to improve upon them, right? If you make something so secure that you are not allowed to make any mistakes because it prevents you from making mistakes, things actually get more and more insecure.
One of the guys working on this project, or an adjacent project, he's doing some really cool AI stuff, development, and he's doing some of that with an eye towards Stacks. He was like, how do we make this happen over and over and over again? Because he's trying to train the AI to understand these attacks and understand these problems, and we can't do that if they're not happening.
Well, but that's exactly, that's adaptability, right? If you're raising a kid, and I think you also have kids, right? So my
I
brother
do.
has four boys. I don't have kids, but
Four
I'm a good
boys.
uncle.
So you're Uncle
Yeah,
Nick.
I'm Uncle Nick. So I love them. They're great. But imagine if you overprotect your kids and they are not allowed to make any mistakes. That they might live a nice life, very protected, but they won't learn anything, and they won't be able to adapt to changes. And when changes always happen, right? That's sort of
Right.
life. So when they
That
do
is
happen, they will be.
everything is temporary. You
And that's
won't always be there to take care of them and to protect them. So the best thing you can do for them, also, by the way, like, they're a different person than you. You don't have any right to have any kind of expectations of your kids. I'm sorry. I have 7 children. I've raised 5 adults. I've gotten 5 successful, well-adjusted, high functioning adult people that are now contributing members of society. And I have 2 more on the way. It's still in the house. And they are really strong, badass, productive people, good people. And I did that by letting them make their mistakes and make their decisions and not handing anything to them. Not that I really had a whole lot to hand to them, because there were 7 of them. So there's never enough, right? But that's what you got to do. That's how you can't, you can't serve someone else's time for them. You can't learn somebody's lessons for them, no matter how hard you try. People got to learn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the same is, of course, with AI, right? In order for AI to improve, it has to learn, and the only way to learn is to make mistakes, right? So it's kind of how it works, right? So you can sort of overprotect, but that doesn't work, and that's sort of the direction where the entire society is heading. Like, we want to sort of block out every possible danger, and put every trigger warning everywhere, so that we live a very calm and tranquil life. But basically, it means you're dead, or so.
Right. All we have are our experiences.
Yeah.
So, good, bad, or otherwise, we're here to have experiences. So the idea that we're going to sanitize every experience,
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Insane.
It's insanity. It's literally insane. It doesn't
it's a
make
megalomaniac. And it leads, of course, to abuse, right? Because it's basically the dream of a control freak who wants to make every decision for you. And that, so it also incentivizes bad behavior, right? Because you're creating a sheep and a wolf to watch over them. So you're creating the wolf and the sheep at the same time. More wolves and more sheep, right? So what you would want to have is like that everybody becomes a wolf. Maybe not a wolf, but a lion is probably a nicer picture. But something
right.
or a honey badger.
Enough. Honey badger. He's in the bonding curve now on City. Not just kidding.
Right.
No,
but also, when somebody gives you advice, right, and they always mean well, at least most of the time, then of course you should listen to that person giving that advice, but it doesn't mean that you then have to follow the rule, right? You can still take it into account and still do it, and then make the mistake and learn from yourself how you react to such a situation, but also learn from the situation, learn new skills, right? If you just took the advice and then not do it, then you take away a learning and a growth opportunity. So,
right, and you don't really own the information from the advice, because it's not going to relay in the same way the next time, and the universe is going to put that same, because you didn't learn that lesson. you're going to live it again. You're going to live it again. That's what the universe does. So,
and now, we are all going to learn the hard lesson of hard money again.
Landy, I love you. Oh, yes, we're all going to learn the hard way, whether we like it or not. Oh, I might be.
You fell away
back.
a little bit.
I froze for a minute. Landy is never misses an opportunity. I didn't know he was. Honey Badger is in the Spaces event this Friday with Moist. I didn't know. Is that the drip? The alpha drip from the Moist crew. I do love those guys. I'm not a big fan of Moist socks in real life. More
dry socks.
Yeah, I prefer dry socks. Fresh dry socks actually. But I mean, Moist socks are proof of work if you look at it right. So, and I love Landy. He's actually such a good guy in the space.
Well, it kind of reminds me of Jack shared, what was it, yesterday? The Germans fighting knives with towels.
Oh, yeah. What is going on?
Oh, my God.
I wish I spoke. Did you? Because I couldn't understand what they were talking about. Was that really what it looked like? What's that?
I wouldn't put it past them, right? I think that would probably it's probably legit. Yeah, I think it's not comedy or satire. Yeah, because Europeans are sort of entrained or conditioned, sort of to hate weapons and to put all the weapons in the hands of the state in order, to protect us. So we always get.
I don't agree, but I understand. If the state needs it, then I need it. If the state needs it, I need it. And but I don't think I need it.
But we do have like a rising violence problem in Europe. The last 10, 20, 30 years. No, let's say last 10 to 20 years. It's really exploded, the violence. But most Europeans don't carry a weapon. Like basically no one should carry a weapon officially. I don't. But
as I don't. I fully respect I see the right to be armed as the right to defend yourself. I do, and I feel I feel very strongly that you should not have to defer your capacity to defend yourself to the state, which clearly doesn't have the capacity to defend you as well as you can defend yourself. And that goes back to the same freedom and security paradigm we were talking about. But I also believe that we manifest the situations that we experience by our actions. So I don't want to manifest a situation in which I would necessitate needing a firearm to defend myself. So I follow the logical conclusion as far as not wanting to manifest that situation, and I keep myself that way.
Yeah, but often sort of when you I'm just talking about what I think is the case, right? Because I don't have that experience because I don't carry a weapon. But I can imagine that if you do carry a weapon, that you would be very responsible with it because it's a weapon and you know what it can do. So you're very careful, and the last thing is that you want to pull it, right? It would be sort of a last resort thing,
right? Unless you're a bad actor, and then your entire intent is to use the weapon.
But then if you're surrounded with people who also have a weapon but only use it in a last resort, you couldn't do as much damage than if you are the only one carrying a weapon and you have bad
armed society is a polite society.
Yeah, I think sort of the stats, I think Jordan Peterson did like long time ago. He had some guest on, I forgot, it's long time ago. And it was sort of like the states that all carry, where everybody carries a weapon are super safe. and the states where nobody carries a weapon are also super safe. But it's the states where, you know, some people carry a weapon and most don't. Those are sort of the danger. That's where the shootings sort of happen. At least sort of that's how I remember it. But you know, maybe.
So one of the reasons why you see mass shootings in school zones is because it's an unarmed target most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, the people there are not allowed to have weapons, and that makes it a target, especially if it's a broader community that has access to weapons. Like it doesn't make sense. You know, and there are definitely it's Landy is agreeing with me. Bad actors don't follow the law, which is why gun-free zones are silly and unenforceable. Right. It's unenforceable because bad actors aren't going to follow the rules. So it just doesn't work. I understand weapons are scary. The idea of violence is scary or unpleasant. I totally get that. I don't want to be armed. I don't want to have a situation. And I, as a realtor, you know, I don't avoid the more the neighborhoods where you might be where there is higher crime, right? I'll go show houses anywhere. I'll work with any buyer, and I maybe I should be kind of arming myself in those situations. I've definitely gone into places where I was probably vulnerable. I've definitely had situations where there was a group of guys coming out to me and my buyer after a show that seemed like they were going to mug us, and I talked them down because I can do that. But I shouldn't have to. That's my choice, right?
Yeah.
And I'm aware of my surroundings because I know what I have to deal with potentially in those situations.
But sort of Europeans are sort of so the news or the mainstream news in Europe is using these sort of mass shootings as sort of the boogeyman about look at what is happening in America if everybody's sort of walking around with guns. And because we're sort of brought up from when we were young to sort of be fearful of weapons and sort of to trust the state with all our, you know, with everything. That sort of plays into sort of the mindset and sort of the perspective that we are raised with. So that's sort of how Europeans watch these mass shootings and why they are so anti-gun oriented. And it took me a while sort of to unlearn it and to have a different perspective on it, you know, a more American perspective. But, you know, I think bijvoorbeeld Machiavelli is also considered to be like a very bad person in philosophy. But I think he's more like a social contract theorist, like in line with Thomas Hobbes and John Locke and Rousseau and John Rawls. But Machiavelli basically and Spinoza, he said, like, you know, the only way for the state to behave is to have an armed civilian citizenry. Yeah, that's the word.
Citizenry.
Yeah. So that sort of keeps the government in check, sort of. And if you don't have that, then, you know, it can easily turn badly. And I think that
in check, and it keeps society safe.
Yeah, and then, you know, to bring it back to Bitcoin, right? Being your own bank is also scary. You can make mistakes. You can lose funds. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes being in crypto, stuff that I regret, like, you know. But there are also like learning opportunities, which if I didn't make those mistakes, I wouldn't have learned those lessons, and then I wouldn't be where I am now. So, right, that's sort of the trade-off is like, do you want to grow and learn, or do you know, want to be protected and taken advantage of?
Yeah, exactly. You have the state's going to be armed. The state has a right to be armed, especially a state that is of, by, and for the people. But so do the people. The people have a right to defend themselves without doing so through a centralized authority with approval.
Yeah. And in the West we've been lucky, right? Because for
the basic philosophy I have here is that people who are otherwise peaceful, not causing anyone harm, should be otherwise left alone to do whatever they're going to do. A permissionless society. The only time the state ever needs to get involved is and maybe the state doesn't even need to be the one that gets involved here. It'll be an evolved state eventually, likely, but is when there's an aggression, when somebody aggresses against another, they violate the peace of another person. That's where you have a problem. Beyond that, if everything's consensual and all engagement is consensual and nobody's getting harmed, nobody needs to have anything to say about it. Nobody needs to be involved in it.
Yeah, it's just between those two people. I totally agree. And and that's all. That's what we also stand for. For as much decentralized. Now, I think like 5 years ago, there's a lot of great content that got lost because of that ban. Because we never expected to get 3 strikes in 10 minutes. So we didn't have a lot of backups back then. Now we make backups everywhere, and that's also why we distribute it as far and wide as possible. But shit, now I lost my train of thought. There was
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I remember. So back then, we all did a lot of shows about sort of the fight between centralization and decentralization, right? And that's now coming to a head, right? It's we society in the West has to choose. Either we go decentralized, and then people will make mistakes. There will still be wars. There will still be crime, but it will be decentralized and manageable, or or we go to hyper centralization, and that in my opinion will be the end of humanity if we go that route, because it will lead straight to transhumanism and crazy stuff. Is my opinion, it's my perspective, but I lean strongly towards humanity and decentralization, and decentralizing as much as possible while we still can.
You hit the nail on the head, man. It is. That's exactly what the world is facing right now. Is either we save humanity or we're going to go into this massive tyrannical hellscape.
And that might very well be the last mistake that we make. That will be very hard to come back from.
It'll be very hard to come back from against the tools that the establishment has now, and that they're developing to use to that end. To
scary.
A lot of the stuff is designed to trap us without making us even aware of the fact that we're siloed.
Maybe like a final on a final note, also to bring it back to the Bitcoin Amsterdam conference, right? With the geopolitical stuff, with Van Middelkoop and Buiting, basically they both were arguing that Bitcoin was too perfect. Right, so you sometimes hear that, right? It's too perfect. It's like the perfect form of money. It's completely, that's not completely, but fully decentralized, and that's why they won't adopt it, because it's a danger to governments, right? Because basically they have to give up power, and they can't give. They only want more power, so that's why they won't adopt Bitcoin, because it takes away power instead of that it gives them power. But I would argue that the other side of that coin is also true. CBDCs are also too perfect. Because CBDCs are, CBDCs are almost like the mirror image of Bitcoin. Like, as an evil tool, they are too powerful, right? Because who wants to submit to the CBDC of somebody else? Nobody in their right mind would want to use somebody else's CBDC. Never, ever.
Do we really need central banks anymore?
Yeah, another good question. I think no. Yeah. No, so it will be a very. Oh.
Landy, Landy says that he's going to graft bear arms onto his body and graft guns onto his bear arms so he can bear arms. And also reset hello as well. But
yeah. You're sort of your connection.
Yeah. I mean, and all joking aside, our community is. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I love the fact that our community is not only is just so engaged, but also that there's such a bent towards humor and kind of saying things to make each other smile and laugh. That's at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. It's the experiences we're having, and we deal with these are kind of some heavy subjects. I mean, it's deep as far as what we're up against, and it's not really quite clear that we're going to be successful in what we're trying to do. It's up in the air. But the more people that come, the more participation we get, the more people we can reach with our messaging through decentralized broadcasting on BitcoinLive and with DeOrganized, and bringing our communities together, and Jerry and Matt on their show. And you have, I forget his name, from
Douglas, 3D
Douglas, and also
Matty Sets, Gerald. Yeah, we got a lot of shows.
What's the coin D?
Renzo.
Renzo from what's that token?
DGB.
Digibit, yes. I used to, which I had a tag of a long time ago. I forgot about it.
And actually, for the people who like crazy stuff, like UFOs and that kind of stuff, it's like a passion of mine. We also do the bigger picture. Actually, we have a big show planned for this Sunday. So if you want to sort of take a break from crypto, it is sort of related to Bitcoin and crypto, because that's why it's called the bigger picture.
What time on Sunday?
We usually air at 8:00 on Sunday, CET, Central European time.
So that's 2 p.m. Eastern time in the US.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun with Sid, and then we're there's so much stuff in the UAP world.
There's definitely, so it's a tough subject to get into because there's a lot of information out there. There's definitely some very curious phenomena.
Oh, you're falling away again.
And
there you are.
There's also stuff out there that kind of is hard to, because it's so there and it's covered up. There's definitely stuff that's covered up. We don't know what it actually is, if it's just classified technology, or maybe there's something else there, and maybe this might explain these anomalies that don't line up with our actual history. And there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people. I tend to think that there's a lot of intentional disinformation out there as a part of the discrediting process.
Absolutely.
It's part of the cover up.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're haystacking bullshit, as Eric Weinstein called it.
Yes.
And there's a lot, but that's not only with UAPs and UFOs. That's their new technique, right? It's because the internet freed us, and you got this free flow of information. That sort of put the truth very hard. It's very hard right now to contain the truth. So the way to contain the truth is to hide it in bullshit, right? So in bullshit and entertainment and distraction. So probably the truth is, right there staring us in the face, but because it's surrounded by bullshit and crap and distractions, we can't see it, right? So one of the fun things about the bigger picture is trying to sift through the bullshit in order to find the truth. But it is a lot of speculation, of course, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's a good diversion. It is, like you said, it's fun. And if you take it with a
grain of salt.
Hey, we don't really know. We're just kind of talking about it. Hey, did you hear about this kind of ad? You're not actually like declaring facts. You're just presenting some ideas. And then it's, it's just you decide, it's up
Yeah, that's also one of the other things is it's always do your own
traveling.
Yeah. No, always do your own research, right? Always do your own research. It's critical.
Exactly.
But yeah,
are you? We're actually an hour and 20 minutes in, and I know you're. And we talk. This is kind of how it goes when we start talking off screen. It's like this. This is kind of the conversation we just have, So I knew this was going to be we were definitely going to be.
But yeah, with the connection sort of dropping away sometimes.
Fill the spot. I thought we were gonna... Yeah. I think I'm losing my signal every so often here too.
Yeah, it was fun.
So, yeah, man, it was a great conversation. I love what you're doing with BitcoinLive. I love working with you and what we're building together here. And I don't know. Landy. The man on the TV told me to not do my own research. Yeah, they did actually say that. They literally were telling people that during COVID, not to do.
Don't listen to the man on the TV, right? I remember the first after the first couple of months with COVID.
Don't listen to the man on the TV.
The remedy to COVID is just throw your TV out of the window, right? That's the cure to COVID. Just get rid of your TV set.
I do. So we could do a whole nother show on this, and it would probably be another hour and 20 minutes easily. I do think personally, I mean, it's most of the information I've seen points to the fact that it was a lab leak out of Wuhan that was being funded in part by
I think the sort of
establishment and the corporate establishment.
The more difficult topics we sort of touch upon, the more you freeze.
Oh, maybe. Could be. You know what? Let's take that one. Open up another. We'll do that for part 2. Next time I have you on, we'll go into that, or maybe I'll come on your show on Sunday for your show, and we can talk about that or something. But we'll get on that. Let's wrap it up. I want to respect your time. I know you had a great time at BitcoinLive.
And I love what you're doing with DeOrganized because you're frozen.
What's the last thing you want?
I wanted to say I love what you're doing with DeOrganized Media, right? Because it's very sort of similar in mindset of what we want to achieve, but you're focusing on stacks, and I love what you're doing with the community. It's amazing.
I don't know why.
And much respect.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Likewise, man. I think that's why we hit it off so well. We're both working towards the same goals. We work well together, and I will have to keep doing it, right? We'll have to keep doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now I'm gonna go to the call with Good Kitty. I think she's waiting.
Oh my God! Don't tell her it was my fault you're late. Nah, you can tell her.
No. I'll be, I'll come up with something. She's probably watching.
Tell her it was my fault.
Sorry.
Have a great show on Saturday. Thank you guys all. I'm Peace Love Music. This is Nick. Follow BitcoinLive DB. Follow Peace Love Music and DeOrganized BTC on Twitter. We'll be back at you again tomorrow morning with the morning update, and every other Thursday at 1:30 on BitcoinLive with our show. Also the Wednesday spaces, and then on Mondays at 4 p.m. we have Whatever Monday, where you guys want to talk about whatever you want. Let me know what's going on.
Yeah, and check out our link tree while you're at it. You're frozen again, Steve. Unfreeze. Oh my God. Your connection, man. I might have to round it up. I'll give you a few more seconds. Yeah, I think I lost you. So to everybody watching, thank you for watching. Steve froze. I think he won't unfreeze. So see you again, and I'm gonna play the outro. Take care, everybody.